This is Glenn, Red Dog Motorsports. I'd like to start out first by thanking all the new subscribers. Really appreciate all the support. Really like all the comments. It's always fun to get to talk to people about my favorite things, working on cars or trucks, buggies, that kind of thing. What you see behind me is my 2011 Ram 3500. It's going to be popping up in the channel every so often. Right now it's in to get the transmission pulled out. We're going to get over the transmission guy and get it back on the road. I owned this truck many years ago, 3-4 I guess, and it's had a bit of a rough life. I got a steal of a deal to get it back. I'm going to make it my daily again. Verbal static. It has been crashed. You can see up here in the front. Well, maybe you can see in the front if I could get things to work. It has been crashed, as you can see here in the front. They took out the fender, the hood, the light, the little lower bracket, front bumper, valance, the grille. But it's repairable. It didn't hit the frame or do anything, just crinkled everything in a little bit. So we'll get a whole new front end sheet metal wise, get everything in here. I am going to try to paint it myself. If I screw it up, then we'll have to take it to somebody else or wrap it. The interior got a little bit messed up. It's not too horrible. They just didn't wash the leather seats when they got them all sweaty on them. And sorry, let me see if I can fix my lighting. And so they're a little bit cracked, but nothing to complain about. The bed's gonna come off. As you can see in the background, I've got a flatbed to put on it, right over there. It needs a little bit of repairs, as everything I buy. It was a deal. I rarely buy anything new. Just no value in it for me. I can't work on it if it's brand new because, well, it's got warranties and that gets voided and yada yada yada. So it's not my style. But we're going to be working on it, getting it put on there. And then we got some other stuff. We'll probably have to get the wheels fixed. They need to be repolished out, that kind of thing. The motor's in pretty good shape. But we'll get this. Oh, the front end needs to be completely rebuilt. All the joints and stuff, everything's loose. It's got a bunch of play in the steering wheel. But those are the things going to pop up in the channel. That is not what this week's video is about. I'm going to pause for a minute. Next time you see me, we'll be right over there. All right, I'm back. This week's video is on my buggy. I was at AOP here last month and the motor went out. Not 100% certain on why. We'll get into that. That's what I'm hoping to find out this week. So we're going to get the motor pulled. We will do a little bit of a walk around on the buggy. I'm going to give out some more information. I've had some questions about what it is, etc. Which I guess we can actually do right now, since we're here. Let me get you guys off the stand. You can walk with me. Walk and talk, please. All right, so I started with, and I built this. I finished it in 2020, but I started it in 2011, 2012, 2013, right in there. At any rate, it took me quite a while to build it. It sat for quite a bit of time. It probably sat for 2 years, a year and a half in the garage and 6 months over my buddy's shop, while I just didn't work on it. You know, life things. I started a business, quit a job, all of these different things, just the things that happen in life. But it ended up getting finished in 2020. It started out as a M&M chassis. He's a gentleman in North Carolina, I believe it was, that builds chassis. This is chassis 19. And I got what we call a builder's chassis. It only had the main external cage. It didn't have anything up front except for the tubing, the main cradle tubing and the shock mounts. Everything else that you see, I had to build all of the grill mounts, all of the upper bar work, all of the fender work, all of the fender tubing, all of that stuff. If there's a mount to mount something, you know, the dash, I had to build the dash all by myself. So all this tubing work in here is mine. All the floors, firewall, tunnel, all of that kind of stuff was built by me in the shop. Not necessarily this one. Even though I finished it here, it's not where it started. Suspension design's mine, all of that good stuff. The basics of it is a 6.0 with a 4L80 that is a reverse manual valve body, followed up currently by a triple stick. So we've got a 241 planetary inside a custom housing. It's called a box of rocks, backed up by a twin stick 205. So it has a 2-to-1 crawl ratio normally, backed up by 2.7 to 1 doubler is what that does. 4L80 is still the 4-speed, obviously. Got cutting brakes, which originally when I had the Detroit in it worked really well. With the spool that is in the rear now, they don't work quite as well because I can't have power on when I use them. I guess I can when I do a front dig, but before I could use them when I was driving like down around some really tight corners and stuff, and now I can't. Have a 79 Ford 60 up front. This is the high pinion 60. All of the truss work, all that stuff's mine. I do have full hydro steering. When I originally built the rig, I started out, I built it on ORIs. They were an older set. They were old when I started. They were like 2013s or something like that. No, they were maybe even older than that. But at any rate, they were a little bit older, and just I think from the time of sitting, even after I rebuilt them, I never could get them to be consistent. They worked. When they worked, they were awesome. Loved them. But then when they didn't, it was just a problem, and I could never really deal with it in the field. And because I live in Florida and always travel 7 to 10 hours or 20, I just couldn't take the risk of getting somewhere and then not having my shocks work. So I switched it over to coilovers. I still have the ORIs. I'm still planning on using them on another project. Just haven't decided what. But so it's not a don't let me give you the impression that I'm bashing ORI. They work great, extremely tunable. They're just not a coilover, and you have to have in your mindset what goes along with using them. And for me, they just weren't cutting it because of the way I'm set up. In the rear, we got a 14 bolt. It is filled with 513s, same as the front. I run a 43-inch sticky tire of the Super Swamper flavor, so Super Swamper TSL SXs. It is my tire of choice. Let's see, dimension wise, I am 13 feet from front tire to rear tire, based on a 120-inch wheelbase. I have a 24-inch belly that is flat. There's just an aluminum skid plate down there, nothing hangs down. Drive shafts are built by me. The links, I got them from, I think, Wide Open, one of those guys. Just an aluminum, 1 3/4 uppers with 2-inch lowers. And then interior, I run PRP seats. I really like them. They're very comfortable. G-force harnesses, I've been using those for quite a few years. I don't know, there's a lot else to tell you. It doesn't look like it, but it really is about the same size as a Jeep. It's about the same height, 79 inches there to the top, and then lengthwise most Jeeps are about 13 foot long. The only difference is my tires are the first thing to hit. I do have a 90-degree approach and departure angle. I run, we can talk about cooling, I guess. So I run twin transmission coolers, one in the front, one in the rear. The rear has its own fan. I run 2 steering pumps, one to run my Hydro Boost and one to run my power steering, my steering itself. If one belt goes, I don't lose both brakes and steering at the same time. Just helpful. I tried give us some hot rod flare. We've got the old Ford tail lights, and it's hard to see, it's kind of dirty, but we did the medallion polish on the dash, that kind of thing. And then I suppose if any of you are wondering, Ham and Cheese Sammich is its name. There's a good story behind that. We were out in Kentucky, my wheeling group, myself. It was rainy, it was wet, I think it was in December. We were back out in the very back end of the park, just as far as you can get from the entrance. And I was eating a ham and cheese sandwich, and I ended up choking on it. And tried to drink some water, and that made it worse. And one of the guys gave me the Heimlich, got me cleared out again, got me breathing again. And it was a near thing. But thankfully to my friends, I made it. I'm here to tell everybody about it. But because of that, my rig got named the Ham and Cheese Sammich. And I told one of the guys that, yeah, you want to make stickers? That's fine. I'll put them on it if you actually make them. And he did. And they've been there ever since. But it's a good story. It's a positive story. I like it. I have no trouble admitting that something happened and I made it due to my friends taking care of me. Up front, another little detail. I'm trying it out, open road winch. I had a warrant on there for years, and the clutch went out in the warren. Kind of important item to have for recoveries, that the winch doesn't just let go at odd moments. And the cost of getting the new brake was about the same as buying the new winch, and I couldn't get it. The part was on back order, and so I needed a winch. So I tried open road. So far, very pleased with it. It's slow. It's not a fast winch. However, it's been extremely strong and reliable so far. Cannot complain a bit. But I'll try to probably get into some further details as we take it apart. But for now, that's the basic intro. Let's get to it. All right. So the reason the motor went was lack of oil. We knew it had oil in it. Sorry. Because I checked it beforehand, and we had checked it before all of these issues started when we were messing around with the fan. And we know that there was oil in it. And then I had none, and I had a big leak on the top of the skid plate. It had drained out on the ground, that kind of thing. Didn't know where it came from other than it was the back of the motor. So I got the skid plate off, started looking just to see if I saw anything, and we found the problem. So you can see right there, I crushed it somehow. I don't know how that happened. Well, I'm guessing it was a rock. But there's a big skid plate right there. There's a 3/8 skid plate. And I mean, not 2 inches from it, it's that big 2x2 quarter wall tubing. But there's a little dent in the skid plate, and I guess it was enough just to get in there. It must have flexed or whatever. So 1 in a million shot kind of deal. At least I'm claiming it's 1 in a million, because I hate to do it again, but bummer. So now we got to figure out why the motor's knocking, whether it's oil pan or oil pump or bearings or what the case is, and go from there. I don't know. Let's get into it. All right, guys, let me give you an update on where we're at. So I took the oil pan off because I was curious. You know, I wanted to see what's wrong, see what we could see. And in reality, everything in the motor looks fine. Didn't find any cam bearings out of place. All of the rods appear fine. Now, you can't tell without pulling them apart and measuring. But at least under a visual inspection, the motor appears fine. So maybe all the noise that I was hearing is just the lifters and the oil pump clattering because it had no oil in it. We think, based upon what we're seeing, we know where I did it and how long I drove it, and it wasn't very far. It was a couple 100 feet, and then as soon as it started clattering, I shut it off. So it may not be as hurt as I thought, but I'll show you. So this is my oil pan. If you look right down there, you shouldn't be able to see any of that. So I smashed it pretty good. So the game plan now, here's a better view from the back. The game plan now is I spoke to him first, but I robbed my buddy's oil pan off the 5.3 that we took out of the Tahoe. I'm gonna put it on. I'm gonna put oil in it. I'm gonna prime the oil system, and we're gonna fire it up and see if the valve lifters and all of that are fine, or if I get a bunch of rod knock and crank knock and a bunch of noise. If it's quiet, then I'm gonna pull the radiator and all of that out of it, pull the front end off of the motor, and I'm gonna replace the oil pump. We got it this far apart, I might as well get that done. I'll get another oil pan ordered up, and then we'll put the motor back together and we'll run it. All right, guys. So we are using the old pump sprayer. We're gonna charge up the oil pump and oil galleys, filter, etc. on the buggy. You see me do this on the Tahoe as the second means of oil in it. And we're gonna do it on this one because we know it's dry. There was nothing left in there. It had all drained out. But we're gonna charge this up. We'll run a couple of quarts in it. We'll fill the pan with another 3 or 4. Depends on, I think I got 3 in here. And we'll fire it up. See how she does. I'll bring you back in a minute, and hopefully, fingers crossed, toes crossed, cross it all, that the motor's fine, and we just need to do a little bit of touch up. We'll replace the oil pump since it ran dry, and a couple other minor little things that need to be done anyways while I got it apart, and then hopefully we can continue to beat it. Speaking of that, we're planning our trip to, me and my wheeling group that is, are planning our trip June 21st to 25th out at Rugged Mountain Ranch in Oklahoma. Gonna go hit some of the trails out there, specifically Tackett Creek, which is supposed to be, I think, their premier trail. So we'll hit it and a couple of the others. If any of you live out that way, swing out, wheel with us. But let's see how this goes with the motor first. Okay, guys, this is a moment of truth. I don't know if you're nervous or not. I'm a little bit nervous. She's either gonna clack a lot because the rods are shot or the main bearings are shot, one of the two, or she's gonna be quiet, or maybe I've dropped the valve or something when all the oil. We're getting ready to find out, though. I don't know what's gonna happen, but I do know it's gonna be a little bit loud. It's running straight headers right now. We're not gonna run it very long. I'm in neutral on the transfer cases, transmission's in park. Primed the oil, or not the water pump, the fuel pump a couple of times. She should fire. I don't have any tools down there. Oh well, let's give her a shot. everybody, it's Glenn. Catching you up on where we're at. It's Sunday about noon, and I was talking with Mike at Over the Top Off-Road, who you've seen on the channel a time or two, at least over at the shop, whatnot. And we were talking about the motor and where I may or may not be with damage to the bearings. And I've already cut the oil filter that was on it originally apart. I didn't have any metal in it. But considering that I drained all of the oil out by smashing the oil pan, and then found out that, you know, through motor knock that I was having trouble, we're concerned that maybe the filter didn't get enough oil through it to show the damage. So what we're gonna do, I've got this loaner pan on it. I'm gonna put a new filter on it. We're gonna run the motor for a heat cycle, and then I'm gonna cut that filter apart. And we're gonna see if I capture anything. If I do, then we have a good idea that the bearings are damaged and that I need to pull this motor out and go ahead and swap in my other one and then rebuild this one at a later date. If I don't, then we're gonna go ahead and risk it, or I say I'm gonna risk it and put it all back together. I've got the new pan, I'll show you that in a second. And we'll take it to Oklahoma and we'll wring the daylights out of it like we always do. So that's what we're getting ready to do. Let me take you over here to this other pan and I'll show you. Lower you down a little bit. You know, just come right on in here. All right, everything's in the way. All right, so this is my old pan. Obviously you can see the hole here. This is the new pan I bought, and you can obviously see we got a big height difference. This one is going to carry a little bit less oil. However, I'm all right with that, considering that this will make sure I have the clearance. I no longer have to worry about pushing the skid plate into the drain. Gives me a side drain too, which is a little bit better. I did try one thing, different years. I think it's starting at like 2007, 2008. The thread for the oil filter switched from a standard SAE thread to a metric thread. And I thought this one was going to come with the right one. It does not. It has the metric thread on it. Not a big deal. I pulled the old one out. If you ever run into this problem, you can just pull the adapter, the oil filter adapter, off of one that fits, and this thread is a pipe thread, if I remember correctly. It threads right into the oil pan, and then whatever filter you're used to buying and using will fit. So I'm going to do that to this one. I'm going to switch out for the magnetic drain plug. I have an ICT, nice ICT block off plate. We'll get it installed in lieu of the stock one. And this oil pan will be ready to go after we do the heat cycle in the motor. So I'm going to fill this filter up. I'm using STP in this case. I could not find a Wix. I didn't look too hard, but we'll get the filter swapped out. We'll get a run on it, and then we'll cut it apart. I'll bring you back when I'm cutting it apart. Nobody wants to sit there and watch my thing run for a couple minutes. See you. All right, guys. So heat cycle's done. I ran it until we got up to temperature 175 or so, which is what this idle's at in cool weather, you know, without running it hard. And let it run for a little bit and shut it off. One of the odd things I noticed was that the oil pump, when I was out at ALP, one of my concerns was that I was having oil pump issues or pickup issues, the O-ring, something, barbell, one of the three. Because it idled at about 25 PSI, it would pump up to about 50 or so. And I just felt like it was getting lower and lower each time I went out. So I already had plans to replace it. I put this other pan on it. I've got the same pickup in it that I had before, same O-ring. And it's idling at 50 PSI and bumping up to 75 when I'm running it. And so I don't know, you know, is that the pressure relief spring? Was it stuck in the oil pump that I've got on it? Do I need to pull everything off the front of the motor and replace that? Or is it, now that it's unstuck, is it good? I don't know. It's a lot of work to pull that out. And I'm kind of lazy. That's a good question. But I did take a look at, I cut the oil filter apart, as you can see here in the video, and used the magnifying glass and a flashlight, and I went through it. And while certainly I find a little bit of black trash in here, that oil pan was pretty dirty, so I'm not too concerned about it. I didn't find any metal. So that's good news. That makes me think that I did not hurt the bearings. And based on the fact that it's producing pretty good oil pressure, makes me think that all of the tolerances on them are good. I definitely haven't walked out a cam bearing. A cam bearing is one of the main things that helps determine oil pressure on these. If you walk one out, there's a big space underneath the cam bearing, and there's a little hole in the cam bearing itself, and that determines the oil pressure. And if that walks out, that slot gets exposed, and more oil pressure releases, and you'll get an oil pressure drop. So none of that seems to be a factor. I don't know. I got to do some thinking tonight, but at this point, I kind of think I'm just going to put it back together and handle some of the other things. I'll show you what was on my list. All right, so this is the list I had for the buggy. All right, so we're not doing this one. We know that that's no problem. The radiator overflow to the water pump. Right now, my overflow drains back into the top of the radiator. I'm not real happy with it because of the height. That I feel like my overflow is not high enough in relation to the radiator. It works, but one of the other ways I could do it is I could plumb that down into one of the heater ports, the intake port, where it pulls it back into the pump, and take the overflow back to there, and I could do some tees and some different things. I'm not sure that I need to do that. Everything seems to be working fine on my cooling, but I'm just wondering if it wouldn't help pull back into it. On the flip side, I get concerned that I might start trapping air in the top of the radiator, because right now the overflows at the top of the radiator pushes all of the air out of it. So I got to think on that one too. We're going to rewrap the exhaust. I'm definitely doing that. I've already got all of it removed. I've got the new stuff here. New oil pump installed. We just talked about that. Revise the tower support. I'm definitely doing that. Radiator shroud revise. Weld the radiator. If I don't take it out, I'm not doing that. Wheels, definitely trying to get to that. Timing chain, not doing that. Cam, not doing that. The barbell, not doing that since I'm not pulling the motor out. Next time I pull a motor, that will get done. Pickup O-ring, that's getting replaced because I've got a new pickup and everything with that new oil pan. Hard mount the tranny cooler, we're doing that. Rewire fan to the ignition switch and remove it from the ECU, we're definitely doing that. Turning off the VSS, definitely doing that. I'm gonna revise my tune. Oh, sorry, you guys can't see any of what I'm pointing at. Definitely revising my tune. I'm going to remove the 4L80 from it, and I'm just going to put in a standard transmission or automatic transmission, non-electric. Since that's a reverse manual valve body, and I don't have the VSS's set into at the end of my transfer case, the RPM difference between everything is throwing my ECU into fits, and it causes some erratic idling issues. And welding the hole in my throttle body. My throttle body plate, I mistakenly drilled a hole in it. We're going to weld it up. So I plan on doing those few items this next week. But as far as the main items, I don't think we're going to have to do any of it. That's good news for me. It doesn't make the greatest of videos, but once this is done, we're getting the transmission back in the red Dodge. We've got a couple little things to do to the white Dodge. All of that's out, and we are going to be hot and heavy on the rat rod. I've got to get that done. Got to get some real progress made on it, because September is going to be here before I know it, and I got a lot of work to do. So, and I got one other job to do I've got a off-road rig, another buggy or Jeep. It's a TJ. It's on portals and all kinds of really cool stuff. We need to plumb it and get it running. So I got to work at getting that over here and get that one done. So lots of things to do, but until tomorrow, I'm going to sign out. All right. Well, decisions have been made. So I thought about the oil pump issue, and because we were having low oil pressure and now it's picked back up, I either had a problem with the O-ring, but since it's the same one that's in there, I'm like, that's probably not it. Or I've got a problem with the oil pump. Maybe either something was out of alignment, which I doubt since we didn't change any of that, or the pressure relief valve was stuck in it, and now that it's drained out, it's working properly. There is another option, the transducer up in the back of the motor where it reads the oil pressure could be the problem, but I'm gonna err on the side of safety. I'm gonna pull the fan out. I'm gonna pull the water pump off of it, the front cover, the pulley. We're gonna replace the oil pump, much like I did on the Tahoe. I've got a new one here. It's a little bit of work, but it's not the end of the world kind of work. And we'll just get it replaced. And it's just insurance. I've got it, most of it torn down anyways. I got the pan's got to be off it, the pickup's got to be off of it. So there's half of the work. So I might as well just go ahead and pull the rest of it off, fix it, know that we've got it all right. It's gonna have a new pan in it, new pickup, new O-ring, new oil pump, and hopefully that'll fix the problem. It'll be nice making sure that this thing has oil pressure again. I haven't had any metal in it, as you saw, and we're not having any noise, so it looks like the motor's fine. So let's keep it that way. So let me get to work.
Went down to that river, washed my sins away, and praying for another day. I went down to that river, washed my sins for free. The devil's on the other bank, staring back at me. I'm a dead man walking, I'm a dead man walking, I'm a dead man. Another nail in my coffin, another nail for me. I gotta look pretty when I go down. Another nail in my coffin, can't you spare one more? I gotta look pretty when I'm knocking down heaven's door. I'm a dead man walking, I'm a dead man walking, I'm a dead man. I'm a dead man walking, I'm a dead man walking, I'm a dead man.
Alright, give you an update. So I basically got all the front of the motor stuff off. And get in here. So you can see water pump's gone. I've got the bolt out of the, oops, I'm getting ready to drop you. Got the crank pulley bolt out, fans out, but I've got enough room in here to pull this, and then I can pull the front cover off. With the front cover off, I can get to the oil pump. But so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to drain the oil, and then we're going to pull the crank pulley off, and then I'll be able to pull the pan and the front cover. As you saw when I did the crank pulley on the 5.3 in the Tahoe, I just use one of my 3-jaw pullers. The 3-jaw puller will not work in this situation because it's too long. So I went ahead and I bought a cheapie off of Amazon. This puller just slots in there, rotates like this. You can kind of just see those angles there. Rotates, grabs it, and then you just use the bolt to pull it out. And then this little part here rides against the crank and it spins free of the bolt. So that's how we're gonna get this one out. And shouldn't be that hard, but let me get the oil drained. We'll get the pan off, all of that stuff, and go to town. Kind of looks like my front cover's cracked. That can't be right. All right, let's see what we got. All right, update on where we're at. I have the new oil pump in. You can see it down there. I used the rotation method for installing it and getting it set once again. And that is just because I don't really have a good way to get my head up in here and get a good view of making sure I've got all the shims in the proper place. So I went without. Then as you can see on this one, let me move this flashlight down a little bit. On this one, these bolt heads are flush. On the old oil pump, walk over here, they are not. You can see them there, they stick out. I bring this up, oops, sorry. I bring this up because when I took the old cover, or not the old cover, I took the cover off, the front cover, it had 2 gaskets with it. And I'm not sure if somebody was shimming the front cover out because it was at risk of hitting those bolts, or if they took it off and didn't realize that the one stayed on there and they stuck a second one on there. I don't know. I know that, you know, with the high volume oil pumps, I thought they were a little bit thicker, but I didn't think they needed the front cover shimmed. Maybe I'm wrong. But at any rate, I got the front cover cleaned up. I am going to utilize, I think, my installation tool. I want to try it out and then install, this is the old seal, but I'll install the new seal after the front cover is on and centered. So we're going to give that a shot, see how that works. I can always take it apart if I don't like it, but that's what we're going to do. So let's get to it. Okay, we're back at it. I decided, since I was waiting on the pulley bolt and I really can't do any more with the front end of the motor, that I would go ahead and pull the intake and see about, sorry, distracted, and see about working on the throttle body. I've got everything disconnected except for this breather line. So I need to pull it off, and then, there, all done. And it should just come right off. Famous last words. Oh, I gotta get that one off. All right, it's out. I got one electrical cable giving me a little trouble. So let us disconnect that electric, and then we'll pull the intake and I'll bring you back. Whoops, I'm out of frame. Once the intake's pulled out, I'll bring you back and we'll go over what I'm having to do to the throttle body plate. All right, I know that the intake is sideways. I don't want to set it down and have anything on my injectors, but that hole right there, I need to fill it. So I'm gonna have to clean up the anodizing and weld that up. There is every chance in the world that I will screw this up and have to order a new throttle body. Hopefully not, but you gotta give it a shot. I mean, it needs to be fixed. It was a rookie mistake, And there's really no other way to do it. You know, I don't want to try to use something that's going to come off and go into the intake, and you know, anything else is just going to be a mess and all of that good stuff. So welding's the only real option. So we're going to give it a shot, see how we do. All right, I'm set up to do the aluminum welding. I have removed the anodizing. Kind of sucks to screw it up. It looked nice, but you can't see it anyways. It's all covered up. I have wiped it down with some alcohol. I used alcohol because I didn't have any mineral spirits. And brake clean, if you use the chlorinated, can give you some really bad issues. It can ruin your lungs, kill you, that kind of thing. Not interested in dying. And I know there's probably arguments that non-chlorinated doesn't matter, all this good stuff, but you know what? Just in case I ever accidentally grab the wrong one, I just don't use it. I wiped down my filler and I've put a new point on the tungsten. So on paper, I should be able to do this without it being a problem. I guess we're fixing to find out. So let's see if I can get this done. Oh, I've got some copper underneath it too, to help with keeping it from sticking and all of that good stuff. So it should, in theory, I should be able to weld this closed and grind it back down and be good to go. Let's find out. If I screw this up, there should be the appropriate... Oh, that sucks, buddy. All right. Let's get her done. All right, took me a second, but I think I got it. Had to get some good cleaning action done on it. We'll fill in this backside a little bit, and we should be good. All right, I'm gonna have to let that cool. One side. Whoops, hot. Hot, 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 hot. Ooh, that's hot. All right, we're gonna let that cool, then I'll show you. All right, it's cool enough to handle. So it came out not too bad. You can see I've got a little bit of grinding to do, but we'll take a fiber disc. We'll get that stuff ground smooth so we got good airflow across it, and we should be good to go. I should be able to mount that back in and put everything back together. I'm going to put new intake gaskets on it. Those have been on there a little bit. I've had it on and off a couple of times, and probably clean the throttle body too. It looked kind of dirty, so we'll probably spray it down and get it cleaned up a little bit, get everything put back together. All right, yes, it's still crooked, but doesn't stick. Everything went back in and fit just fine. I did end up just touching the edges with the file. It seemed to didn't warp it per se, but expanded it maybe a little bit. But I just kissed it with the file. It didn't need hardly anything. But once I did that, everything went back in like it was supposed to. So we're good to go. But that hole there, I had it in there thinking I needed to assist with my idle, and it was a rookie mistake. So we will, hopefully this will help me. It won't fix my problem with it dying, but I think it's going to help me tune it out, which I've been unable to do. And I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that that hole was in there. So under closing my throttle, that hole was giving a quick burst of air and screwing up my fuel air ratios and letting the rig die. But hopefully with that gone, as this closes and the computer's trying to keep everything with the IAC, the intake air control right here, it is trying to close the throttle blade and do that. That hole's not going to let that big burst of air go in there and give me all kinds of trouble. So we'll put it all back together. I'm going to clean it. I've got to do some vacuuming. Talk to you guys up here. All right, so we'll get back on the rig. We'll use a vacuum to clean up all of the intake area. That way I don't drop anything down in the cylinders. And then we'll put the new gaskets on, drop this on there. And it's just the reverse of how I took it apart. It was really neat, not even that many connections. So I'll get on that, and then we'll see what we're gonna get into next. All right, so here's the exhaust. Now, the band clamps, this style of stainless steel clamp, it works nice. I only have 3 of them and they're not big enough. So while I could double them up, I'm just going to use some stainless steel tie wire and I'll double it up, and I'm just going to use it to hold it. I use a stainless steel band clamp on the other end, this end, where I finish to hold everything together. But what I try to do is I try to start somewhere up at the top, and I typically fold it something like this to get all the fuzzies in there, and then I'll go and I'll do a full wrap. Can you guys see? No, you can't. See, if you're paying attention. Alright guys, when I do this, I like to take my end and fold it like so. Just keep all the long strings down. I get that placed up tight where I want it, and I want to make a full wrap around the tube, holding that piece down so that it's completely hidden. And then you can just pull it tight for now. Where'd my lock wire go? I'm using lock wire this time instead of the stainless steel band wraps, just because I don't have any. But I typically try to take 2 wraps around just to get it locked into place. And you can spread them out a little bit. They don't have to be right on top of each other. And you can just grab them. I'm using duckbill pliers. Give it a nice little twist. Finish it out. Couple of wraps. And somewhere, my cutters are in my lap. Cut it off. Bend it over. Now, I'm not doing this, it doesn't have to be aircraft quality. Just has to be so your fingers aren't catching on it. All right, now we can go on and continue the wrap. And all I'm trying to do is keep it nice and flat. And I overlap about half the distance of the wrap. In the corners, it's a little bit different, because if you go too much, you're going to completely miss it. And if you don't, if you're not careful, you get a bunch of wrinkles in the corner. So just like that, just pulling it tight. Now this type does not have to be, you can see I missed it. You see right there, I missed it. So I'm gonna have to back up. But in order to back up, all I do is loosen it. And then I can come back, reposition it, pull it tight. And then, again, I'm just keeping about half the distance on the wrap going down the tube. Now, a lot of times you got to untangle yourself as you go around to get it all flattened out again. It's kind of a pain on tubes like this where you can't get something in between them. So you got to keep rolling it to get it flat again. But you can get a couple of loops on it. And that lets you get a good start. I really can't see you guys at all, so I'm hoping that you can see me and what I'm doing, and I'm not just a voice in the dark. Guys, the wrap is done. Came out pretty good. I got at least one mistake I found, but I took it out. I just painted it with some high heat black. They do make some special. They make some clears. You can order the special stuff through Summit for whatever wrap you're doing, whatever. Like I think it's HEI has their own little spray you can use, and some of those are in clear. I don't care about the color so much. I mean, I like the titanium, but it gets under the buggy. It just gets covered in mud, and you can't see it anyway. So black it is. I did the Dodge, the 06 Dodge, when I put the manifold in it, I wrapped it and painted it in black. It's been holding up really well. And it actually, with it being black, it kind of just hides the fact that it's wrapped. Makes it a little bit more of a stealth mode. But I'll let this dry overnight. Hopefully some more of the parts come in and we can finish up the buggy. All right, guys. So parts came in. So we can get started on finishing up my buggy. Self-explanatory. This is the new crank pulley bolt. We need that. This is the lock. It mounts to the starter position, the two bolts. This part goes up against the flywheel and just locks it in place. And then these are the engineered mounts that I was talking about. The engineered brackets, whatever. So we will take this end and grind it out to fit the tube, and then we'll cut this tube down. It'll fit inside, and weld it all back up. Should be good to go. So let me get underneath. I need to remove the starter. We need to get that part installed. The lock, that is. Once the lock's installed, I can do the pulley bolt, and then from there it's just putting everything back together. Then we can start it, which would be good. So let's get on it. All right, there's the lock. It's installed. Initially, when I first put it up there, it didn't look like it was going to engage properly. but once you tighten it down, it'll shift into position better and lock down pretty tight. So good to go. Now let's just install. Now we just need to install the crank bolt. Okay, we're going to start it up. I really suspect that I'm going to have an exhaust leak. The exhaust is hitting the edge, just the corner. Let me see if I can show you. I don't know if you can see that, but I'm hitting right in there, just on that side of the pipe. It never hit there before, so it's the change in the oil pan, but it's keeping this collector from buckling in all the way tight like it normally does. I suspect I'm gonna have to take it all back off and massage that edge in, and then rewrap it and repaint it and put it back in. Those are the brakes. But for now, I've got the front of the motor in, the belts are on, the fan is in. I don't really need it turned on. I'm gonna leave it off just for noise. I'm getting ready to fill the radiator. I've got water in it. I poured water straight into the block, and then I've topped off my tank. So we're getting ready to fire it up and start filling that up. And then we'll just listen for any noises, like our exhaust leak, any valve rattle, any of that stuff, and then we'll check the oil pressure, see what we got there. So let's fire it up. I did charge the oil system too with the pressure tank. So did all that with the 2 quarts or 3 quarts through the pump sprayer. So here we go. Yeah, you probably can't hear it, but I can hear it when I get my head down there. It's leaking. Doesn't seem to be too bad. We got the oil pressure. Can't hit the accelerator while I'm standing there. We're gonna let it idle, get up some temperature, let it start sucking some of this water down. Motor's quiet though. No valve rattle, none of that. That's good. Ow. I actually wonder if that's not my the header flange at the head leaking and not my collector gasket. I'm gonna have to double check that with the old stethoscope, see if I can find that. Let me get into that, let you know what I find. All right, everyone, update. I am ready to weld in my tower support, my shock tower support. And basically we have the old bar. I cleaned up the ends, I cut it down to size, put a bevel on each end, and then notched the engineered fittings just to fit the top of the bar. I'm installing this as close to the radiator as possible. My radiator, in order to come back, has to go forward quite a bit, or backwards quite a bit. To come out, I usually have to remove the whole front of the motor to get it out. And I can't move it back. As I move it back, it gets into the way of the alternator and such. So I can't have it there. So forward it is. And hopefully that means that if I need to remove the radiator, I can pull this bar out and then the radiator will fall forward. I can lift it up and out. I don't have to cut these off. I didn't realize they were going to stick out as far as they do, but such is life. But I need the bar in here to keep things from collapsing. And then the way these engineered fittings, I'll show those in greater detail. I'll when I finish weld everything, we'll end up taking it out, and then I can show you how I've got them lined up. Right, let me get this tacked in. We'll go from there. All right, got everything welded up. I still need to grind on these a little bit just to make sure they're flat enough for the hood to sit on them right. But this just, you can see, it's got a little bit of a angle to it. It's got the reverse on the other side. You just slide it in place like so. On this one, there'll be 2 bolts that go through the side. Sorry, I'll show you on this end. There'll be 2 bolts that go through here. And there's captured nuts on the other side. And just bolts right into place. Sometimes you got to knock them around a little bit when things get a little bent up. As the vehicle moves, that kind of thing. It's not a big deal. Sometimes you got to take a grinder and open them up a little bit, put a little chamfer on them, that kind of thing. But for the most part, they work pretty darn good. They're really strong in use when they're bolted in, despite the issues of having to deal with them going together and coming apart. But at this point, we're done with the buggy for now, I think. I still need to do the rear drive shaft, so I got to get that done. And I still need to take the exhaust back off and get a hammer to that area where it's touching the pan. I'm not going to film that though. I won't bore you guys with it. But I hope you've gotten some questions answered on the buggy. Build one yourself. They're an absolute blast to have. It takes things to a whole new level. Or build a Jeep, build whatever your flavor is. Get out there and do something. But I'm gonna finish this up. The motor runs good, oil pressure's great. Those are the things I was really concerned with. The rest of this is just icing on the cake. But I'll finish those few things up. We'll finish zip tying and hopefully see you on the trail.